Welcome everyone, this is Zanta, and today's video will be on Bluebeam Revu 2016 tips and tricks. I have about 30 to 35 Bluebeam Revu tips and tricks I'd like to show, and in no particular order or sequence, we're just going to run down the list. The list that we'll run down is actually here. And so let's go ahead and get started. The first one is when you want to create a new toolbar, the traditional approach is to right-click over here in the gray area and click Customize and go through the process of creating a new toolbar. You can hit the plus symbol, give it a name, and go through that process. However, you can also go to any particular command that you want, for example, the shape command, and head over to Polygon. There's this little push pin. If I click this, it automatically allows me to click New Toolbar, and I can create my favorite tools, hit OK, and it automatically creates it and puts it in and places it here, which I can move as well. And each time I specify another command, like this, I can click my favorite tools and it drops into that bucket. And so I can very quickly create my own custom toolbar this way. The second tooltip is being able to split or separate or drag tool palettes around with the docking icon. What I mean by this is you have some commands that are located here on the left-hand side. You have some that are located on the right-hand side. You can left-click and hold and drag them and move them somewhere else, say over here, and now it's on this side. You can also click and pull and put it out, and it becomes its own. And if you're kind of savvy enough, you can actually dock the two together. You can also use the arrow docking location here, for example, the bottom one, and it will dock that command down here. And you can do this on both sides. So perhaps a good one would be the properties palette with the measuring tools being separate. So I will left click and hold the measuring and click this down arrow, and now I have my measuring tools here with my properties here as well. If you have multiple screens, you can actually pull that aside as well. I'm going to put it back to its defaults for easier use and teaching purposes. We have another tooltip called Include Dependencies on Profile. What this means is that when you're working with profiles and you have all of the ones down here in the lower right-hand corner to work with, as you click the icon, there is the Manage Profiles window that opens up, and it lists all the different profiles that you have. As you select each one, you can actually export that data out. Make sure you put a check mark here that says Include Dependencies. That way it carries across all the data that's necessary. Another tooltip is dragging PDF files off to a second monitor. So I can left click and hold any one of these tabs for any one of these PDF files and drag it out to a second monitor. And I'm going to do this for now just so that you can see that it can be pulled out in its own separate. I do have a second monitor, but my recording software is recording the main screen right now. Another tooltip is it's actually a Windows tooltip. If you hold the Shift key down on your keyboard and click an icon for a piece of application, for example, Bluebeam, it will automatically launch another session of that software. And so you can see it here, and I can pull it over to my right. And then you can see this one as well, which I'll pull slightly to the left. And so you can actually have two sessions of Bluebeam Revu running if you need to. You can do this, and one of the neat tricks you can do, another tooltip, is to drag files, pages, from one document into another document within the same session or separate sessions. So here I have a markups list PDF file. On this PDF Bluebeam Revu session, I have another one called estimating. I can head over to its thumbnail as well, and I can drag and drop any document that I want that's on the left over to the right and click to place where I want it, and it will actually insert that as well, as you can see here. Let's close this second session of Bluebeam and restore this back to full and keep going. You also have the ability to go to the tool chest for another tooltip. So we have these symbols here, and you can click obviously and place them, and you can do that as many times as you need to. But what if you need to change the colors? You can select all of them, right click and click change colors, and you can change the destination color to a different color, and they will all change. You can also do this over here in the tool chest as well. Right click and duplicate it, then take the duplicated one and change its color to a different color. And now you have another command that's just like it but with a different color. You have the next tooltip is your markups list advanced search. And what I mean by this is if you open up the markups list, you can filter by clicking filter icon here, and you can filter the data based upon the column and the information, say for example flooring. And the only thing that shows up in the markups list is what you're filtering by in that column. However, there is a search field here that's an advanced search field, and you could type anything you want. So if I type in revise, it will find any markup that has the word revise in it. So this is a very fancy, fast filtering tool that you can use, and it searches everything. A next tooltip is pre-selecting sheets based upon markups for the purposes of printing, for example. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. And you can see from this markups list, I have several markups on several sheets. And let's say I pick this markup and I hold Control key down and I pick this markup. Now I have two markups selected. I only want to print the sheets that have those markups. So because I have selected them in the markups list first, when I use the print command, you will notice in the page region, those pages are automatically selected. And this works with other types of multi-sheet functionality as well. You can also use the quick hyperlink to document tool in Bluebeam. What I mean by this is we'll head over to the recent files access window. I'm in the sample estimating file. If I want to create a hyperlink of a document from over here, I can put my mouse over any one of the files, and there's this little hyperlink icon here. Click it, and it automatically goes into the hyperlink command. And I can create a window selection area, and that defines that hyperlink. You can see that your mouse turns from an arrow to a little white hand with a finger, and I can click it and it will automatically open up that particular file. You can also create hyperlinking quickly via places feature. Let's head over to a floor plan view and let's use this one. So I have this area here and I could create a place for it. So we'll head over to hyperlinks. Create a place. I'm going to call this 3. Specify that rectangular region, which is here. And that hyperlink is created. And it's an actual place, Now, because I have the place created, and you'll see it here, you have this little icon for a link, hyperlink. Click it, and now you can click anywhere you want and specify that area for the hyperlink. Let's say we use just a random location. This little area here. So I've created a hyperlink in that location that refers to that place. So if I click it, it takes me directly to that place. You also have the ability to use the control key on your keyboard to zoom and scroll, and this is dependent upon the size of the paper. Traditionally, when we are working with documents that are 8.5 by 11 like this, as you press and hold the mouse wheel down, you can pan and you can zoom. If you hold the control key down, it scrolls up and down. If you hold the shift key down, it zooms in and out. If you're on a document that's larger than 8.5 by 11, a typical CAD-based file, and I scroll the wheel, by default it zooms in and out. Pressing the mouse wheel down pans it. Holding the control key down cycles from one sheet to another sheet. In other words, it's scrolling up and down. And shift allows you to zoom in and out as well. If you are in an 8.5 by 11 document and you're zoomed in all the way like this, if you hold the shift key down and use your wheel, it's either going to zoom in or out, or scroll up and down, or go left and right. And that is dependent upon the size of the paper. The next tooltip is holding the shift to pan left and right. So this select command has to be what's turned on by default. And you use the shift key on your keyboard, and as you scroll, it should go left and right, and if it doesn't, it takes a second or two to come into play. If we switch this to continuous mode and scroll in a little bit with the control key, as I use the shift key and scroll my wheel up and down, it will shift left and right. So again, depending on the size of the file, and depending on the settings that you have for whether it is set to single page or continuous mode, scrolling the wheel on your mouse will either go up and down. Holding the control key will allow you to zoom in and out, and holding the shift key will allow you to go left and right. You also have another tooltip, which is to create a blank page of the same page size at the very bottom of your document. So if I head over to my thumbnails page, in the lower right hand corner, there's this little icon right here that says insert a blank page. Click it, and it automatically creates a new page, like so. If I'm in a document that's much larger like this, I'll keep it down here so you can see, and again I click this icon. It will create another document at the very bottom. You have the ability to take a markup and copy and paste it to multiple sheets at the same time, and also to the same place. So let's head over to the markups document again. We'll head over to a sheet that has markups on it. And the first one is Control-Shift-V will copy and paste to the exact same place on another sheet. Let's head over to this down here. If I want to, I will create a markup like a cloud markup. Now that it's created, I can select it, I can right click it, and I can say apply to all pages. And that markup, you notice, is showing up on every single page. If you have a markup, for example this one, and you want to copy and paste it to another sheet in the same location, you can select it, Ctrl C to copy it to the clipboard, go to another page, and then do Ctrl Shift V, and it will paste it directly to that exact same location, like so. You have the ability to work with the ellipse command to create circles, and the Alt keyboard to work with that as well. So let's zoom into this area. If I use the ellipse command and I click it, and I click and I drag, I make an ellipse. If I do the command again and I hold the Shift key down, it makes a perfect circle. If I do the command again and I hold the Alt key down, it allows me to make a perfect circle from the center of that circle. If you use the next tooltip, which is the Alt feature with the arc, that's kind of interesting. When you start the arc command, you are picking a point and you move your mouse and you're creating this arc that's very iterative, if you can see, and you can make adjustments like so. If you use the arc command and you use the Alt key by pressing and holding down on it, you can actually specify 3 points for that arc. Let's see what else. If you are working on a particular markup, let's use this one here. Let's zoom in here. There are a lot of aspects to this particular markup. If you hold the Alt key down and select that markup, you now get into the sub-selection of that markup. And so I can click and drag certain features of that markup to make adjustments, as you can see here. And depending on what you've selected, you can pull and make adjustments. Okay. If you are working with the polyline command, here's another tooltip. We start the command, we pick the points that we want, we hit enter, and it finishes the command. If we work with the command again, oops, if I hit the backspace, it will undo the last segment, as you can see. So you don't actually have to hit escape and start all over again. You can just hit the backspace and it will drop that last one. You can also type in C and it will close the polyline from for the last segment. If you're in the selection process of this polyline, you can also right-click and add a control point by using this command, and it places it there. However, a better way to do this is to hold the Shift key on your keyboard and click where you want, and it will create as many control points as you click. You can also click an existing control point and it gets rid of it. If you hold the Control key down and pick the control point, it switches it to a curve. And if you do it again, it switches back to linear. Let's see, another tool tip is if you're working with a callout, you have the ability to hold the Shift key down, pick the shoulder point of this callout, and it allows you to put in another arrowhead point. Give me 1 second. Try that again. Let's try this one more time. It's a little finicky. So you want to select this, hold the Shift key, click the little dot where it says plus, and it should give me another one. This one seems to be ornery. Let's try another one over here. Oh, by the way, you can hold the Control key down on another markup, and it will create multiple markups, and we can move them accordingly. Now let's try this again. Oh, my cursor is messing up. There we go. Just takes a second to click. And that's how you add another arrowhead to your callout. If you have a markup that is an area markup, for example here, when you select it, you're selecting the entire area markup and the text. If I want to move just the text, I can hold the Shift key down and left click and hold the text and move just the text. If you don't hold the Shift key down, you'll end up moving the whole thing. Another tooltip will be if you are wanting to highlight this area. If I use a shape command like polygon, and I draw this, it places it. We can go to the properties of that, and we can change the fill color to any fill color that we want. But if I put a little check mark in this highlight feature, it will act as a highlighter. So it's kind of a neat way to color and highlight your areas that you need. Another tool tip is in the tool chest, under My Tools, you have these numbers here that correspond to these particular markups. I can just click the number 1 and it goes directly into that markup. I can click number 2 and it goes into that markup, which is white. Click 3, goes into that one, 4 goes into this one, and 5 goes into the actual last command. You also can right-click in the Tool tab, which is another tooltip, and click Close Other Tabs. If any of the files need to be saved, it'll ask you to save them. You don't actually have to save them if you don't need to, but this is a quick way for you to close all the PDF files in this session of Bluebeam, except for the current one that you're working with. If you are in a document or you have a file opened up, for example here, this subfolder only has 2 PDF files, but let's imagine there were several PDF files in here. Another tool tip that you have the ability to do is use the Alt key on your keyboard and page up and down, and it will cycle through the PDF files that are in that current subfolder that you're working with. And it will basically open up those files. When you are working with estimating and working with the measurement tools, there may be situations where the calibration seems to be off. Let's look at a sheet here. I have a couple sections here that are at different scales. One is at an 1/8 of an inch scale and one is at 3/16 of an inch scale. If I head over to the measuring tool, you will see if there are viewports that are created. Okay, there are no viewports created, but the tooltip states that if you're having difficulty calibrating, you can actually click this command, clear all, and it will get rid of all the viewports so that you can calibrate again properly. And as a quick refresher, to create a viewport, you can just click Add, specify the region that you need to have a specific scale, give it a name, and then specify calibrating it with 2 points, and making that measurement the way you need it to be, and that's calibrated. Same thing with this one over here. I can add another viewport that defines this region, and we will call it section 11, and also calibrate it, because from here to here is 10 feet, which is different than the 10 feet from here to here. Okay. Sometimes if you're calibrating and you're having difficulty, you may need to click the snap to content feature off. So clicking it like this is turning it on, clicking it again turns it off. Another command tooltip that helps a lot is when you're working with a command, say this one, and I drag and I place it, it's done. However, if I need to do it several times, I can click this reuse command down here, and now that it's turned on, I can create as many as I need until I'm finished. Okay. Another tool tip would be, let's say you want to create a hyperlink for a website to drag onto a particular markup. Let's create a markup. And now that we have that markup, what if I want to create a hyperlink for that particular markup that goes to a website? I can obviously select the markup and right-click and click Edit Action. And it opens up the Actions window where I can type in the hyperlink. That's fine. But another way to do this is if you have a website open, let's go to custom doors openings like this. Let's find something. Maybe you're working on a design and you want it to look something like this. So we'll go to this particular page. There is this little icon here called information. If you left click and hold that and drag it into your file, you can actually click to place it on that markup. Now that I've done this, you'll see that markup hyperlink is automatically created. And so I can click that and it will open up a new web tab to that particular markup, for that particular markup. If you need to create the same hyperlink for multiple markups, you can do that as well. Let's head over to this sheet, and I have this markup here, and I'll hold the Control key down, Shift key down, and pick another one. And if I right-click and edit the action and put in a hyperlink, this time I'll just go to another site. We'll go to this one, and we'll copy this and paste it in here and hit OK. What ends up happening is I create the hyperlink for not just this particular markup here, which you can see the icon, but also here as well for this particular markup. So it's a good, easy way to create a hyperlink for multiple markups by just selecting all of them. And then the last tooltip for today is the reuse, which we covered. So I can click this command reuse and reuse the command, but let's say another way to do this, if you forget that this is here, and we'll turn it off. If I click a command, for example, ellipse, I can create the ellipse. I can do this one at a time, and it just does what it's supposed to do. However, if I double click the command, it goes in, it has a highlighted amber color box, which allows me to create the ellipse and stay in the ellipse command, so I can create as many as I need. And when I'm finished, I can click the select arrow and I'm out of the command, and the reuse function is finished. So I hope you enjoyed the Bluebeam tips and tricks for today. I tried to cover about 30-35 of them. And if you have any questions, just give me a holler. Thank you very much.